afternoon. We welcome you to our study meeting. Pursuant to Utah Code, West Valley City has determined that this meeting will be held electronically without an anchor location, given the ongoing novel coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. West Valley City has determined that the pandemic presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at an anchor location. This meeting will be held electronically. Members of the press and public are invited to view this meeting live on YouTube at www.youtube.com/user/WVCTV. With that, we note that we have 6 members of the council present. We believe Councilman Hune will join us shortly. With that, then, we are ready to take care of items on our agenda. The first item being the minutes of January 5th.
Move for approval of those minutes.
Second.
Properly before us, hearing no further comments, then without objection, the minutes will be approved. Hearing no objections, I will rule that passes unanimously. Next, reviewing our agenda for later tonight. There have been no changes to the proposed agenda. So any questions or concerns with that? Hearing none, we'll go on to resolutions. Resolution 21-08. This is to adopt the legislative agenda of our city for the 2021 Utah State Legislative Session. And it looks like Ms. Cottle is in the queue, ready to tell us all about it. Go ahead.
Hey, thank you. Hi, Mayor and Council. As we do every year about this time, we like to bring to you as a council the resolutions before you tonight, both for the state legislative agenda, which session starts in about a week, and the federal legislative agenda, which is the next resolution on the list here. And as you know, for the federal agenda, we do a rolling agenda because the sessions don't line up exactly the same. So it's more of a longer agenda look for the federal. So starting with the state, as you are also all aware and have been at this for several sessions now, a lot of bills flowing, and in a normal year, in a typical year where we're face to face with legislators and watching those bills go through, it's difficult at best to make those decisions on the fly and adequately represent the city's interests. So what we have decided to do is request of the council a review of the Brightline guideposts for looking at each piece of legislation, and then the various people who represent the city with the legislature and at the Capitol can make decisions about a position on a particular bill. So as you know, the Brightline rules that typically the council has asked us to follow and live by are making sure that any legislation that we support or that we would look to support would provide local control and continued local control. You've asked us to be very cautious about anything that limits our ability to assist our residents and to provide the services that we've provided to them and continue to be asked to provide to them. Also be on the lookout for funding needs and making sure that both we're not only getting just our fair share, but that we're also tailoring any funding that might be of need to our city and to our residents, and that we're continuing to have that funding come in. And so with those bright line rules of maintaining local control, ensuring that the city can continue to provide the services it's providing, and watching for funding, we do move through those probably this year over 1,000 bills that we'll review and make position on. Some of those don't have anything to do with municipalities. In addition, this year, and I think that you're all very well aware, this will be much like what we're doing now. Many of the meetings are exclusively online. There will be some in-person interaction at the Capitol, but very limited. Many of those meetings are limited to 20% or less of capacity, and we're being strongly encouraged to not come in person to the Capitol. So these guidelines that you are setting forth for your staff today become even more essential, because we'll have to do a lot of this work on your behalf in new and exciting ways. So on the first resolution, if you have any questions about the state agenda or topics, I could go through some of the highlighted topics for the year. There are a lot, but happy to address some of those as well, or take any questions.
Any questions? Hearing none, then let's go on to Resolution 2109 for our federal legislative agenda.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mayor. As I mentioned, so the federal agenda we do on a rolling basis. You saw that the Exhibit A was attached, and we do have some guidelines that the council gives us in that resolution, but also some specific things that we are seeking at the federal level from the city and the various departments. So we work with our representative Ron Hamm there in Washington, and very close with our delegation this year. In fact, I would submit to you that more than any year that I've been doing this, we've had a lot of discussion at the federal level with both Ron and with our congressmen there, Congress representatives. And one of the most interesting, I will just give a brief highlight that we're watching very closely, and many of you were on the council when earmarks were a theme at the federal level. It's been many years since we've seen earmarks be in existence, but there's strong indication this year that policy, it's not actually legislatively regulated, but a policy at the federal level, that policy might be changed, and that earmarks may be re-implemented. And as you know, those of you that were here when earmarks were in place before, that's a very competitive situation. We fare typically very well as a city in the earmark game, and we'll continue to watch that. But we do believe that will be set back forth, and we'll be watching that for all of the needs that you see there in the federal agenda. We could take any questions on that as well.
Any questions? Hearing none.
Okay.
I think your documentation was very thorough, and so that was very helpful. I think that eliminated a lot of the questions.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Next, we have our new business scheduled for next week. This will be to consider application SMI 11-2020, filed by Stephen Flores, final plat approval for property at 2283 West, 3800 South. Well, looks like Mr. Lehman is online, so.
Thank you, Mayor. Steve Lehman, Planning and Zoning Division. This application is a request, as you mentioned, from Stephen Flores to subdivide an existing property just under 1 acre on 3800 South at about 2283 West. We'll bring up a couple of illustrations for you. The first is just an overview of the property in question. Just sits east of I-215 off of 3800 South. The large building up in the upper left corner of this illustration is the Costco building. That gives you some perspective of where the property is located. The next illustration is just a zoomed in version. And on this property, you'll see an existing single family home that sits closer to 3800 South. What the developer, the property owner is wanting to do is to build another home on the property for his son. So the request is to subdivide the property into the 2 lots. And then we have a street view that just shows the existing home that's there on 38. And then as you'll notice on the right side, there's a large swath of property just to the west of the existing lawn area. That is where the new drive approach will be situated for the home that will be built behind. And then the last illustration is of the subdivision plat itself. Difficult to see the language or the verbiage on the plat. So the lot that's up front next to 3800, which is on the left side of the screen, will be lot 1. It will just be under 11,000 square feet. So it is a good sized lot. Lot 2 is just under 3/4 of an acre in size, and that will be the location of the new home. The improvements are already existing on 3800 South. That was done by a city project a number of years ago. The developer will be doing a new drive approach for the new home, and will be replacing the improvements that are there. And so the purpose of this application is to subdivide the property to create 1 new building lot. That is our report.
Thank you, council.
Steve, could you go back to the second photograph so I can see that large again, please?
Is it the aerial?
Oh, the aerial, yes.
Okay, so 1 slide previous. Okay, right there.
So is that a flag lot to the immediate east?
It is. That was a subdivision that was done called the Northridge Estates. There is a brand new home that was constructed there just this past summer. We expect that the new home would be located, excuse me, just to the west of that, and the large elongated piece that goes to the south that connects to the August Farm subdivision. We anticipate that that property will develop with single-family homes in the future. You'll notice a stub street in the lower right corner of this illustration. We anticipate that going north and then turning west and cul-de-sacing, and so you would have new homes on either side of the new street.
And then the 2 lots west of the subject property, are those just great big long deep lots, single
They
lots?
are, yes.
And then it looks like there is a house or 2 east, directly east of the southernmost part of the subject property. And I'm not even sure I see how those are accessed, or are they on the same lot?
Yeah, they're actually on different parcels. It's rather interesting. There is a lane, you can kind of see, looks like a trailer that's parked there. There is a gravel lane that goes out to 2200 West. So there are 2 homes that are situated on that bigger piece of property that you mentioned. They do gain access from 2200 West. They have been there for, probably since the 1940s.
Okay, this not including a zone change, is this an administrative subdivision action?
It is. All of the lots, frontage area requirements meet provisions of the zoning.
So there's no ask at all, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any others? Hearing no further comments, then we'll go to application SMI 12, 2020, filed by Tyler Bodrero. And final plat approval for property at 5990 West Parkway Boulevard.
Thank you, Mayor. This application is a request to subdivide an existing parcel of approximately 42 acres into one lot and one parcel. And we'll bring up the aerial photograph. We've got a couple of other illustrations for you. So this is the subject property. As you see, Parkway Boulevard is located on the south. The Mountain View corridor is directly to the east of this property, along with the Rocky Mountain Power Corridor. And then you've got two existing residential communities east of that. The property, as I mentioned, is 42 acres, the purpose of which is to divide off approximately 6 acres, which will be known as Lot 1. The remaining property to the north is vacant and will be developed at a later point in time. This property is currently owned by Ivory Homes. The next slide simply is a zoomed in version. You'll see the Ritter Canal that goes through the remainder property. There is an existing single family dwelling that sits just outside the boundary of the subdivision to the west, and that will remain as it currently exists. We did take a couple of pictures to kind of give you an idea what the property looks like. This next slide is taken on Parkway Boulevard looking to the west. This is a newer section of asphalt that was installed in conjunction with the Mountain View corridor. Property to the north of that, or where the gravel area is the frontage of this property. That will be improved with curb gutter sidewalk as part of the subdivision. The next slide is looking directly north, which is just vacant property. Off to the left side of the screen, you'll notice the single family home that is there. And then the next slide is looking to the northeast. You can see the large power poles for the Rocky Mountain Power. You'll also notice the beginning stages of the overpass or the incline for the Mountain View corridor. And then the next slide is a caption of the overall property, showing the two pieces in question.
Steve,
Yes.
on this property here, before you go to the next one, are all of those shacks on this property, or are they on a different piece of property?
No, they're on a different piece of property.
Okay, so this would not clean that up. Okay.
Correct. And the next slide is a record of survey, which is just shows the boundary of the entire subdivision. This is not going to be what the subdivision will entail. What this shows is parcel 1 is the remainder property. Parcel 2 is going to be the lot that we're going to subdivide. And the next slide shows that as a subdivision plat that you'll be approving next week. So this shows the boundary of the lot. There is a road that is cross-hatched. That road goes from Parkway Boulevard northward to the remainder property, as that will be one of the primary roads that service that land when it does develop. So the purpose of this application is to create this lot for the purpose of a new charter school, the Wallace Stegner Academy. And so as part of this application, the developer needs to create the property for which to build the school. In the issue paper, we did address a couple of parcels that are along the west side of that road. You'll see the existing home, the single family home that's there. There are a couple of properties that this particular property encumbers this piece, such as fencing and some asphalt paving. Ivory Homes is in the process of working with that particular landowner to acquire these two pieces. so the school does not need to worry about them. So we think that the discussion is going well, and we don't anticipate those parcels being a problem in the future. We included this illustration just to show you the layout of the school. This is not the application that, or this isn't the site plan, I should say, that is going to be approved. This was just a conceptual drawing that I had asked for to show the council how the school will be situated on the property. And that is our report.
Okay, council.
This property has a couple different zones, but there's no zone change with this request.
Correct. The bulk of the property is zoned A. There is one small piece up along Parkway Boulevard that is zoned R110, a little triangular shape. Since this is a school and they can really locate in any zone, there was not a need for the property to be rezoned.
Okay. So this is just an administrative action again then?
Correct, Councilman.
Mr. Lehman, one question, just on the 42-acre parcel. Is that a little strip of wetland that goes south of the Ritter Canal there? It was a little green and I just wasn't sure. Could you just clarify? It doesn't affect the request, but.
Right. So since the property or the remainder property is not being evaluated right now, we did not request a action from the Corps of Engineers to determine if it's a jurisdictional wetland. It very well could be, since it is attached to a navigable body of water, which is one of the criteria for a property being designated as wetlands. When that property comes in for development in the future, that would be something the city would require to determine how best to handle that property.
Yeah, it was just for information only. Doesn't affect this request, so. Hearing no further comments, then thank you, Steve, and we'll go on to the next item on our agenda, which is the communication of the strategic plan presentation from our fire department. Mr. Pyle, are you?
Yeah, the chief is making the presentation, Mayor. He should
Oh,
be
there he
on
comes.
or about to get on.
Yeah, he just hadn't gotten there yet.
Okay.
Now we see him.
I only tripped down the stairs once, so I'm here now. We're going to get this up. Well, I appreciate the opportunity. It's been quite a year. In my time in the fire service, there was two things. One, I hope would never happen while I was there. And the other one, I didn't think it would ever happen. We had an earthquake and we had a pandemic. Two things I never thought that I'd see or have to deal with. One important note here is ever since this all started, everything we do in the fire department has changed. From how we respond on calls to just what our daily functions are now. So I'll go through this. Please stop me at any time. One of the things that you see here is our EMS response times. Just to let you know, on the response times, like the 5:43, that's 5 minutes, 43 seconds. So that's broken down into seconds. Our response times for EMS went up just a little bit, and that is attributed to some of the things we've had to do with our PPE and things that we respond on calls with, which would be the same for the fire. We are still meeting our goal of under 6 minutes. We are at 5 minutes and 43 seconds for overall both fire and EMS. We are anticipating that these numbers are going to continue to go down with the new CAD system that was brought on board for the fire service about 3 months ago. So by next year, we're thinking our response times are going to be shaved just because the amount of time it takes to get the call out. Our call volumes, yes.
Are response times measured from when the call is placed, or when the call is received by the fire department, or when the garage door opens, or what's the starting time on that?
When the alarms go off in the station, that's the time that we're tracking until we get to the actual address.
Okay, and that's consistent throughout the years that we show?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Chief, one other question on that.
Yes, sir.
It looks like there's, pretty significant changes, but in truth, because your axis starts at 3.8 and 5.8, there's really not a huge difference from year to year as shown here. It's actually much smaller if you were to show from 0.
Yeah.
So the changes may look huge, but in reality, and of course, every second's important, but they haven't changed a huge amount. So just thought I'd note that for anyone listening in or seeing these.
Our call volumes remain pretty much steady. We're still, for the last few years, we're over 12,000 runs per year. Also, the calls by district, these are the fire station districts. It's pretty much stayed constant. Station 72 is still our busiest station. Community involvement. This was a big one that had changed this year. With us not being able to go out to the schools a lot like we have been, doing public education, we tried to streamline how we could do it. We've taken to social media, we've done some videos, we've done virtual fire station visits with tours. These were everything from showing the station to the trucks. We just tried to do everything we could to keep the public involved. We continued to conduct inspections as we could, especially for occupancies such as childcare and things like that. The other community involvement we've really tried to help and deal with is the pandemic response. Station and apparatus. By March, we should be getting our new ladder truck that was approved last year. It takes about a year to build them. That will be being delivered here in March. And then we've updated some of the other stations that were not new. We updated some of the fixtures and furniture interior in those stations. Medical division is where it really hit us. One of the things that we were charged with was we are doing most of the tracking for all the COVID responses with all the addresses, everything that deals with the COVID we're doing. We're also helping with all the PPE or the personal protective gear with the whole city. So we've been keeping busy that way. One of the things that has really changed is how we, not only how we respond to a call, but the cleaning of our apparatus on every call. And that's a big thing. We are sanitizing the ambulances after every call now. We also put new self-loading stretchers in all the ambulances. The Lucas device, the CPR devices that you see here, we now have them on every ambulance in the city. The BiPAP machine, what that basically is it's another way, instead of intubating patients with less trauma. These are basically the same machines that people use for sleep apnea, except we can do some other stuff with it. So we were able to purchase one of those that's on our critical care paramedic unit. It's just less invasive than the intubations that we were doing. And then finally, we transitioned all of our medical people to a national registry system that was required by the state of Utah. So now any of our medical personnel, they're basically registered throughout the United States. Their licenses are good anywhere. Training was an area that we had to get kind of, well, we changed everything. We had a recruit class. You've seen the videos. We had some big plans for training this year, but with COVID, we couldn't keep getting everybody together. We've instituted some high-rise training because of some of the newer buildings we have. As I've said before, ladder trucks only reach so high. After it gets so high, then it's just personnel carrying hoses. And so we've been doing a lot of training that way. We've put a new accountability system in on fire operations to make sure the safety of people. The multi-company drills, we basically had to just do a lot with just one company. And we've done a lot with Zoom and other things like that to keep our training going and to make sure we're still getting the hours that are required. And then lastly, we were out of state a few times again. We were in Northern California pretty much from the end of August till October. We had crews in California, in Northern California. And then we were for 2 weeks in Oregon with a structural unit. One of the things that was left off here also was we had 4 of our members in Oregon with the Urban Search and Rescue Team. During the wildfires, they called for an urban search and rescue team. So here again, that's our presentation. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions. If you need any further statistics, please let me know. I can get anything you need.
Chief,
Yes, sir.
what about personnel? Are we fully staffed? And follow up to that is, are we getting younger? Are we getting older? How's our experience level with the changes to training? We feel competent and able to handle whatever's thrown at us, including earthquakes and pandemics now?
Well, I wouldn't say we're ready for that. I didn't know when you're getting older if you was looking at me. That's why you said
No.
it. Okay, I'm just, that's just a joke. No, we're keeping our training going. We are a younger department now. We're pretty much fully staffed. We've got a couple of openings just for some people that have left, but we'll be replacing them. So yes, pretty much we're now, after that last recruit class, we were pretty much up to full staffing. But our training keeps going. But here again, yeah, we're younger, but that's good. They're eager, and we still have a lot of people with a lot of experience. So it also helps those younger people.
Okay, thanks.
Go ahead.
I'm just saying, if there's nothing else, I appreciate everything.
Sounds like there's no further comments or questions. So thank you.
You bet.
Appreciate it. Next, we have our strategic plan presentation for public relations and neighborhood services.
Hello, Council. I was thinking back in March, I bought a bunch of new shoes. That first week in March, I bought 3 or 4 new dress shoes that I haven't broken out of the box yet. And I'm wearing a coat and a tie that last week, being the forward thinker, I realized I should probably dry clean that coat because it's been probably getting dust for the past 10 months as well. So I am ready to go. I'm very proud of myself that I'm wearing a suit and tie. So going to go through a little of the work that we've done this past year, and it's been a interesting year, I think, for all of us. I have a great team. You know them well. I have Roxanne Bayanuku. I have Matt McKella, Aaron Krim, and Craig Thomas, and they truly are fantastic. Those are guys and women that I can call at 10 o'clock on a Friday night, and they will get out and get the work done. And they are deeply invested in West Valley City and love our residents, love working here for the city and working for the council and for City Manager Pyle. It's been we truly enjoy the opportunity here. So I thought we would break this into two things. We'll start with a little video that shows our video capabilities for this past year, and then I'll kind of get in a little more to the presentation.
Justice is really, wait, what? This guy really likes me, I guess.
The seniors love driving up here. They drive up right here.
From everyday police work to the most intense moments.
We're out here to show our support. We're here with the police, other fire departments within the valley, just showing support. To recognize all the first responders and all the nurses doing their job.
I'm Officer Alvarez with the West Valley Police Department. I've worked here for 3 years now. I do this job because I really love the camaraderie. I love working with the guys that I work with.
Next, you're going to connect your hose. On your hose, simple, easy to read instructions.
It is Friday evening. The Murphy family has finished dinner.
Go ahead and demonstrate the 2-foot planted method. So then he's got, as long as he touches that.
Including emergency responders from being overwhelmed. How can you help? Before calling 911, ask yourself, is this really an emergency?
4 years ago today, Officer Cody Brotherson was killed in the line of duty.
Tonight, we just want to talk to you really quickly about National Night Out in West Valley City and our plans, what we're going to do this year.
Part of our current process to keep everybody safe is to screen everyone that comes through for any high likeliness of any respiratory related issue, including COVID.
Talofa.
Malolele, everyone.
Talofa.
Aloha. These past weeks, we felt the impact of the coronavirus.
Just trying to make a difference out there.
I like helping people. That's why I want to be a police officer, to help and protect.
We'd like to thank our elected officials for all of the support that they have given to be able to make these beautiful parks a reality.
The West Valley City Police Department is the place to put dreams into action.
Stand by your hand.
These past weeks, we've stayed home.
Stayed apart. We've stayed up on our hygiene.
And now we need to stay strong.
Even if you don't know, just do the chest compressions and just keep it going.
Our community, do it because we are strong.
We are West Valley City Strong.
West Valley City Strong.
We are West Valley City Strong.
Don't just think about a kitten. Click on over to the West Valley City Animal Shelter and find a kitten of your very own.
Hello, hola.
Hello.
Hola.
Hello.
Bienvenidos.
Bienvenidos. Estamos llegando a la etapa final
del censo 2020.
Esta es una oportunidad única.
On July 4th, the West Valley City Fire Department responded on 117 calls for service, including several fireworks calls, structure fires, car accidents, and other medical emergencies.
When the West Valley City Police Department responds to a call,
talking to himself,
these officers have been specifically trained to help cool down even the most heated situations.
And just tell them to dribble the ball and kick over the cones.
We had some missionaries just last Saturday come. There was 13 of them that came and they dug and they were here for 4 hours.
Today I'm here to talk to you about one of the great festivals we have here in September, which is Get to the River.
Today we decided to have an emergency drill for West Valley City. The drill consisted of an earthquake that centered in our city. We try to do this as often as we can to find out what our strengths and weaknesses are.
Do you know what we do with Public Works?
I get to work with all the guys that help with our roads.
Good afternoon. My name is Jeff Fox. I am the fire marshal for the West Valley City Fire Department. Behind me, we have a lot of bikes.
The holidays are a busy time for online buying. Here are the top 10 tips you need to make your transactions as safe as possible.
Barnabas the sheep, he was found running through a residential area. He is currently up for bid.
That's certainly an interesting environment right now. So
we're going to show you the life of a firefighter getting ready to go on an emergency call, what he has to do to get prepared and be safe.
This is our Christmas week, and it's outstanding. In our job, we get out and about to a lot of different houses, and we see a lot of different things, and there's a lot of people struggling, this year especially.
Okay, well, that's the end of the book. Thanks for sitting along and listening to me read this great book, and I'm going to go ahead and get back to work with my friends here. Have a great day.
So I'm glad we were able to have that video put together. That just shows the amount of time and the opportunity that we've had as a team, especially Matt McKella, who's been really involved, but as well as Roxanne Vianuka, who did a lot of script writing and a lot of work on that, and Aaron Krim and his support, and Craig Thomas on that. But it's been great working with the different departments in the city, especially police and fire, to get the message out. So now I'll get right into my presentation and kind of show you some of the numbers over the past year that we've been able to accomplish and work on. So when we look at our online communication, so this is typically handled by Aaron Krim, but also Roxanne and Matt and Craig to an extent as well. And you'll look at it, our social media followers. So we're about 76,000, and that's an increase of about 25% from last year. Some of the other interesting notes from that is if you look down at the website visitors, which is, that's about a 5% increase of website visitors that are coming every year to our website, over 550,000. And then minutes watched of some of the YouTube content that we put out. This is in a big reflection to adding our videographer, Matt, to it. That's a 50% increase in the amount of minutes watched, and that's mainly just additional content. You can see some of the other things. Our website is doing its job in driving people to do searches. Over 40,000 searches happened on our city website this past year. When we go to community outreach, this is a little bit of a change, quite a bit of a change, as you would guess, by the challenges that we faced this past year. But it's been neat to see how Craig, as well as our department, met those challenges. And even though the events were overall down for this past year, different ways to reach our residents was put into effect. We did some drive-through fairs, a lot of different messaging out in the community through signs, and all of that were put up to help them and help our residents see it when they were leaving their houses and while they were going for walks and doing all of that. You'll also notice at the bottom, National Night Out, even though it was greatly modified this past year, the efforts that were done on that earned us another year of nationwide recognition. That's a top 10 finish for the amount of work that our city does in reaching out to our community through public safety. So we're super proud of that, and that's quite an accomplishment. You'll see our community meetings where we had live viewers. A lot of those are some of the chats with the chief that we do with Colleen Jacobs, our police chief. And we still have a strong youth city council, which is supported by our advisor, Clover Meters, who has worked with the different schools and bringing some of those students to be youth city council members. We're fairly small right now, but continue to grow it and have a real positive effect there, which we're proud of. Our video and graphics, you'll notice quite a bit of change. The total views is double what we had last year. You'll notice council meetings. You had 43 last year that were shown on YouTube at 31 hours, which I'm not complaining at all. That's about 4 hours more than it was last year. So I don't know what that means, if the issues were tougher or if we just like to discuss and really come to good understanding and good conclusions on that. But yes, 31 and a half hours of council meetings last year. The public videos is the most dramatic increase. We had 79 videos that we put out to the public last year. This year we had 317. So a fairly dramatic increase. And also on the graphic design projects, these are everything from social media designs that kind of get people's attention to signs that we're putting up in the community to brochures and flyers. We did about 100 more. And I think a lot of that reflects just the different type of year that we had and us looking for creative ways to reach our residents. And you'll see that as well in our print and promotion, where we had over 200,000 physical paper and other things that we put out into our community. Last year, we were a little over 100,000. So it does show a different way that we were working to reach our public. And that's something that my office, I'm very proud of our team, is they're always looking for ways, different ways to reach the public. And I think they do a terrific job, whether it's Roxanne's writing on our social media and crafting of the message for our police and fire, or Matt's videography and the great work he does with that, and Aaron managing our website, which has many challenges and can be a struggle, to Craig figuring out how to reach our residents on a grassroots level and being able to reach them in the community. So thank you for your support, and thank you to Wayne for giving us the leeway to try new things and get the word out, and we appreciate it. Any questions, anything that I can answer? I can stand here all day.
No, we just, because it's electronic, we have to give a moment in case someone turned their mic off and they think they're asking a question, they discover that they're muted. So we just wait a moment. Go ahead.
My question was going to be, how long can you stand there? But you've already answered it. Good job.
I could probably do 11 minutes.
All right. Well, thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Interesting information, and appreciate both you and the fire department for the changes that have been made to deal with this unique year.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, we have a follow-up on open space requirements. And Wayne, I don't see anyone.
Pretty sure it's Mr. Pasterik, but
okay, he made it finally.
Yes.
There he is.
Sorry, for whatever reason, it takes a minute for my screen to pop up there. So let me pull up a presentation for the council. So hopefully everyone can see the slides here. So this is actually the fourth presentation we've had on this topic. So going back to September, we discussed briefly with the council what existing ordinances we have as they relate to our open space. And in October, we had a discussion about potential new standards, although those weren't presented in any type of ordinance format, more just for discussion. And then lastly, in November, we looked at some examples of other cities. And so a couple of other things that the council wanted to discuss. There were two topics that came up that sends us on potentially changing the code. The first would be that when evaluating the amount of
extension is not valid,
is looking at having townhomes and then apartments that are in the same project essentially meet the same or provide their own open space and meet the requirements that are specific to that standard. And then the other standard that was discussed at our last meeting was adding a requirement for trees. So this would be a requirement for open areas that are outside of landscaping along streets. So landscaping that's internal to a project having a tree requirement. Again, the discussion last time was not so much go ahead and prepare an ordinance, but let's talk about these again. So I've got these two topics again for potential discussion or further discussion by the council. And then finally, the other topic that was discussed at our last meeting was trying to put some of the examples from other cities in a format that can be compared in more of a table. And so in this case, we looked at the open space percentage, amenities, and tree requirements from several other cities and put it into a format that's hopefully comparable from one city to another. And in some cases, it's not a direct comparison just because cities often will define things a little bit differently, but this is our best attempt at trying to consolidate this in a table format where we can make some comparisons. And again, so you'll see 4 cities on this slide, and then the last slide here shows a couple more cities plus the standards that are in place now for the city, the third or the fourth row, and then the final row would be the suggestions that were talked about in the second presentation. And so again, the point of today's presentation was just reporting back on those items the council had requested from our last discussion, and I'm happy to answer any questions there may be.
Okay, council. Boy, it's awfully quiet. Well, if there aren't any questions or discussion, the first question we probably should address is the 2 items for potential changes. If you want to adopt those. And then second would be on the suggested changes on the percentages, definition, etc., that was recommended as well.
Mayor, if I might.
Sure.
As far as the 2 changes, well, and all of the proposals, my hesitancy is based upon, I frankly don't know that we have too little or too much, or we would chill development, or, I just don't feel like an expert in this. That's why I want to see what other cities do. The proposed changes would fall in line with other cities. And, if that's the standard and we can have nice developments built here, I almost want some encouragement from staff that, yeah, this is going to be a good thing, or we don't need to do it, or it's really going to make it hard for anybody to build anything here. And I don't know that we're hearing any of that. It's just kind of which we typically maybe don't ask for because we want to be the experts, but here I don't feel like the expert at all.
And I can address that for a minute. So the topic of open space was originally brought up by the council. And so as staff, we were just really replying to inquiries from the council. In that second presentation, we did make some suggestions that we felt like as staff would push for more open space in certain situations, but we felt like would still be doable in terms of development. And so as staff, we feel comfortable making those suggested changes. But again, the topic overall was not raised by staff. It was more a topic from the council. And so again, if the council would like to pursue changes as staff, we're certainly comfortable pursuing those suggestions that we made.
Right. The discussion came from, are we requiring enough open space? As we looked at a couple of different developments and what are other people doing? What should we do? Still, I'm in the same spot where, I don't know if these are good changes, if they're really going to improve things. They're going to chill things so we don't have development. And maybe that's okay for a while too, frankly, until the demand is such that they'll build what we want. I think that this is probably not something that I would have pushed to bring up, and yet I'm probably okay passing it if that's what everybody else wants. I'm just kind of in the middle here.
Right. Maybe one other comment I would make, that I think part of how we have coverage, if you will, would be that very often developments like a condo development or apartments or townhomes, on just about every instance there's a rezone that precedes that. And so as part of the rezone, we end up having a development agreement and often negotiate these kinds of things. And so in many cases, we'll end up having standards that are higher that are in the code just through or by means of a development agreement. By changing the code, it would again establish or set that expectation up front, so people understand that going into it. But that's, I think, often why we get more open space sometimes than what's in the code, just simply based on development agreements.
Okay, so would these proposals change the code to be comparable with what we typically require in a development agreement?
So I would say in the case of like a townhome development, those have been closer to 50%, which is the standard in a PUD situation. But for say, an apartment development, we're seeing more in development agreements, at least in recent examples I can think of, than what's currently in the code.
Because in the last year and a half, we made a change to our multi-unit housing to say, why don't we just include in the code everything that we're always negotiating in a development agreement? And I'm comfortable with doing something like that with the open spaces. If we're negotiating it continually into a development agreement, then yeah, we ought to just make it part of our code.
I think that makes sense too, Councilman Bueller. And the other Steve, I've just got I guess sort of a nitpicky question, but can you think of a reason why maybe Salt Lake and Sandy or other places haven't included trees or in their, I guess this discussion? I'm just asking why, or is it because we can dictate that people plant trees but not necessarily keep them alive or maintain them later on, or does that make sense?
It does. And in the case of Sandy, it was interesting. They do have a tree standard for commercial development. And when I talked with their planning staff, they said that in PUDs, they'll often essentially use the same tree requirement in commercial areas as within a PUD, just by the fact that it's a PUD and they have that kind of negotiating ability. Often other cities will, as we do, have tree requirements along streets, for example, in park strips or things like that. But in the case of Salt Lake City, they did not have one internal. And in the specific situation of Salt Lake City, I'm not sure why they don't. But as you can see from this table that's up right now, we don't have a standard for trees that are internal to a site. It's more just along the perimeters.
Steve, can you remind me on the open space percentages, the 50 and the 40%, is that on everything or only PUDs? Does this apply to multi-unit residential as well?
These are really geared towards any type of attached housing. So, and again, the 50 or 40 would depend on the density. So if it's under 20 units to the acre, you'd be 50, and then it's 40 for anything that's over 20.
So is that yes on multi-unit residential, like apartments, condos? It would apply to those as well, not just town.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, and it's what would be driven here. Any kind of attached housing. So whether it's condos, townhomes, apartments, either the 40 or 50 would apply depending on the density.
Okay. You know, I really think this suggestion is, or recommendations are very well thought out, and I like them. The one issue with the trees, I think it's a really good way for us to move. On the east side of the valley, trees were planted more, and they're older, more mature. Out here in West Valley, this was mainly the farmlands, and trees were built or planted mainly as the border for the farms, not so much internal. And so we just don't have those mature trees in our city that I think we need to encourage. So I would be good with even more trees, but I think this is a really good place to start. And I think we should try it and see if it increases our umbrella of trees. I think we're way behind other parts of the valley.
One thing perhaps on those just the water requiring types like tenants, standards required for each of them, that told me that I think there's only been one in his recent memory. I can't remember specifically, but one or two. But it was just where, because they had two different standard or one standard, they could move it back and forth between them. And I thought we ought to be consistent if it's to do the types do for all town extended often because someone does a townhome to meet those requirements, or when they do it themselves, they meet those requirements.
I'm sorry, Mayor, on my end, your audio was cutting out, so I don't know if you had asked a question.
Yeah, looks like we've lost him now. So I think we give him a couple minutes to log back in.
Oh.
He's on Comcast like I am, and I've been fighting it for the last 10 minutes.
Okay. I'm back, I think. So did I drop out completely? Did you hear anything from me?
Every fourth syllable.
Ah. Well, that's probably about the worth of it anyway. So no, it was just that the standard on requiring townhomes or apartments to meet the separate requirements, there's only been one or two of those. Is that right, Mr. Pastorick?
Right. There's only been a couple in recent memory.
And it makes sense that if it's a townhome, it meet those requirements. And if it's, because they typically will have yards or whatever, whereas apartments have common areas, but where it could be anything. Just seemed to make sense, but it's not a big change and it can't happen. So what do you want to do at this point? Well, then I suggest the following, and I'll start the conversation, and that we put together a change to actually go for approval in our regular council meeting in the future to adopt those changes recommended by our staff, kind of summarized for on that last comparison of standards, and then also the townhomes apartment one. And let's see where we go from there.
I agree, Mayor, and I'd like it to be
It's so
focused
quiet,
on.
everybody agrees or everybody disagrees.
Like to see it focused on whatever we typically negotiate plus whatever we've discussed here.
Is there anything other than those? I don't hear any, so I'm assuming that there would not be anything other than these items we've discussed here about the standards for different housing types, the trees, and the 40 and 50% on density space. Did I include everything there, Mr. Pastrick? So those 4 items?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So if, just as a reminder, so if the council would like to pursue this, we would first take that to the planning commission where it'd be a change to the zoning ordinance, and then it would come to the council for consideration.
Yeah. That's why I said for a future meeting, not next week. It will, yeah, it'll take a while to work this way through. Well, let's do like this. If there are objections, now is the time to raise it. And I pause, listen. Hearing no objections, we will have them take it through. That does not commit anyone's vote, and any subsequent information can be, can change. So we'll just see how that works through the system.
Thank you.
All right. Oops, let me. Okay. Thank you for the discussion. Next, we have our council calendar. Probably not a whole lot there. Potential future agenda items then.
Nothing for me.
Okay. Oh, I think I would mention on council calendar, it's on there, but just for public information, we will hold our strategic planning meeting this Friday and Saturday.
At 9
And it will be electronic. I'm sorry?
9 o'clock on Friday.
Yes.
And they still need to reach out to Nicole to get the Zoom instructions.
Yeah, well, let's
I
see.
will be sending
No,
those instructions out tomorrow, Councilwoman Lang.
But for the public, will they need to get a hold of you if they want to participate?
Yes, so they'll still fill out the online form that we typically have them fill out, and I will provide them meeting information that way as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
but
you.
they will only need to do that for the public comment portion. In other
Do we
words,
have any
for,
public comment? Well, we've never had public.
Wayne said no.
I don't think we have.
We
So they
don't
can just
typically have
log
public
on.
comment in the strategic plan, and we don't have that scheduled or agendized.
Yeah.
So they can just log on to the website like they would and pull up the agenda and watch the video live, or go to
Right.
YouTube live
Right, correct.
without having to sign in 2 or 3 days in advance or 5 minutes in advance.
I think that's right. That's right, Nicole, correct?
We weren't planning on streaming it live on YouTube unless the council would prefer. So basically anybody that would like to to watch would get the login information and would participate as an attendee. So they wouldn't be able to speak or unmute, but they'll still be able to listen to the conversation.
So I guess why wouldn't we live stream it?
Yeah.
Is there a particular objection to doing that?
No.
As long as there's not some, prohibition for the length of time or there's a cost or something, I think we just do whatever's easiest for the public to get in and not have to make arrangements beforehand.
Yeah, that might be a prohibition for the live streaming, would be just the time involved, because it will be most of the day.
Do we have any idea, Wayne, if there is a cost associated with that?
I don't think there's extra cost. Sam, are you on? Sam's checking right now. He's told me. I don't think there is, but we'll let you know if there is.
Yeah. I know there's a limit on which method will it be used? Will it be Zoom or will it be Facebook?
Be Zoom.
Okay, if it's Zoom, I know that if on the free one, they bump you off after 40 minutes or something. But on all the others, I think if you buy a license, I mean, you can't stay on forever, but.
We've been considering that situation, Mayor. We've got that sorted out. Looks like Eric's got some commentary there if you want to hear further detail about how the Zoom meeting will operate.
To the first question of the Zoom meeting, we can go 30 hours at a time, so there's no limits on that. And then Sam's got the answer on the TV.
Yeah, from what I was able to see on YouTube, we are stuck at 8 hours to live stream. So there is that challenge. If we don't want to take it live on YouTube, you would just go on the Zoom meeting. So it's just whatever your preference is. But there is a time limit based on my short research history of about 8 hours.
So 8 hours would take us until 5, which is probably about as long as we would go. But if we were to go longer, can we cut out our lunch time and do like a 4 hour and a 5 hour after an hour lunch or something like that? So it's 2 times on, or are we limited to 8 hours in the day?
So why would we want to start getting to that level of complexity would be my question.
Just so we can make sure we have all the time that we need.
You mean to the YouTube live stream question, or to the Zoom meeting, right, or to what?
To the YouTube live stream question. If we're cut off at 8 hours and we're actually going to end at 5:30 instead of 5 o'clock, is there a way that we could accommodate that by skipping lunch or something?
Yeah, probably.
Well, I know the 40-minute limit, on the free version, it's real simple. What you do is it cuts you off and everybody just signs back in and you keep going for another 40 minutes.
But we don't need to worry about that, because that's just Zoom. And we've got the license for Zoom.
Yeah. What I'm saying is that there's easy solutions probably, but the real question is, should we do Zoom or Facebook?
No, we're doing Zoom here. We're already set up.
You're already set up for Zoom?
Right. And we have up to 30-hour Zoom meetings. So Zoom's no problem for running strategic plan.
Okay.
They're talking about the live streaming of it over YouTube. That's where the 8-hour limit is.
Yeah.
In all of the ones I've attended in the past, I think I've only seen 2 members of the public come, and they both came the same year. So it hasn't been excitingly attended by members of the public.
That's true.
If you use the word excitingly attended, then the number probably even goes down further.
Right.
However, if it is available, there are, I think, maybe a couple of our stalwarts that might want to listen in.
Well, if we are going to need some sort of pre-registration, we just need to make that known,
No,
right
no,
now.
we don't. If we don't do public comments, people can just sign in, can't they? Wayne?
Not under the way we've got it set up, Mayor, right now. What we were
Oh.
going to do was notify people or send out an invite and contact those, to use the term stalwarts that were mentioned. But we can do it the other way and just make it live streamed. We just haven't done that before. Obviously, we've never done this electronic strategic plan meeting. We just had not seen the necessity of doing that, but we certainly can do it. And yeah, for sure, we can sort out the 8-hour limit. And like Steve said, we're probably about that time where the day would be ended anyway. So one way or the other, we can figure out the YouTube thing.
What we should probably do in that situation then is, I understand the pre-registration, but if someone were to contact us, we ought to have a way, because they may not want to spend the whole time, or maybe they just want to catch something that they think will be in the afternoon, or listen to our summary or something. So is there a way that we could not have that requirement that they have to contact us beforehand? Could they,
Yes.
text or email us? And I want to just pick up a few people. I don't think there's going to be many. I think Don's right. If we have 5, that would be a big deal.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think we don't need to decide and make that direction right now, as long as Wayne and staff will, they understand our concern. We want it to be as easy as possible so that anybody can get on that needs to, and then they can decide how to make that happen and make sure that we're invited as well so we can participate.
Yep, we can do that.
Okay. And so we'll stick with Zoom and do with that. Okay.
Okay.
Anything else there? Any council reports or potential future agenda items? Whoops.
Yes, I do have a council report, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Hopefully they're going to bring the slide up for me, but I attended Western Growth yesterday, and they've come up with a resolution. There it is. They've come up with a resolution for the legislature. They're going to mail a copy of this to all legislators, especially those on the western side. Have you got the third page of that, Eric? This is the list of transportation items that they have prioritized and want to encourage the legislature to fund and encourage bonding if necessary. And they asked us if we could maybe come up with a resolution supporting this that they could pass on, as they do their lobbying. I just told them I'd bring it up to the council. So this is the resolution they have. There's a page and a half of whereases, and then this is the prioritized list. And they prioritized it with Wasatch Front, the UTA, and all of the rest of the transportation players. So that's the report from there. Just whatever our decision is. And I'm sure that if Nicole has not got a copy of it yet, I'll get her a copy. Also today at the municipal council meeting, they talked about the same type of things, had a legislative report and upcoming legislation, and transportation is heavy on their agenda, and also housing is heavy on their agenda. And they're talking about right now, Representative Ward has a bill on auxiliary dwelling units that are internal. In other words, remodeling a basement, this type of thing. the leadership of the legislature is talking about taking that a little further and maybe making it exterior accessory dwelling units also, and possibly putting state regs on it rather than just local regs. So just so we're aware of it, and I'm sure Nicole is going to be aware of it and following up. So that's my report.
Anyone else? There's no need for a closed session, so unless someone has further comments, or then we've completed our agenda.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn is in order. Then without objection, we will stand adjourned. Hearing no objections, it's unanimous. We'll see you at 6:30. Thank you.